There's a psalm that has been hidden in plain sight for 3,000 years. A psalm so powerful that when you read it for just 3 days, not 3 months, not 3 weeks, just 3 days, something breaks in the spiritual realm. The chains of debt loosen, the burden lifts, and blessing returns. I'm Rabbi Cheyenne. I'm 83 years old, and I'm about to show you which psalm it is, why 3 days matters, and exactly how to read it so it works. But I need to warn you, this only works if you follow the instructions precisely. Miss one element, and you'll read the words without experiencing the power. Let me start by telling you something most people don't understand about debt. Debt isn't just a financial problem, it's spiritual bondage. The book of Proverbs says it clearly, the borrower is slave to the lender, not servant, not employee, slave. That's the spiritual reality of debt. It creates a master-slave relationship. The creditor has power over you. They can call, they can demand, they can threaten, they can control your decisions, and you're bound to respond. Debt creates constant anxiety. You wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep worrying about it. It affects your peace, your decisions, your relationships, your faith. Colors everything. You can't fully rest. You can't fully give. You can't fully pursue purpose, because there's always this weight, this obligation, this bondage. Debt creates shame. You feel like you've failed, like you're irresponsible, like you're less than others who don't have debt. That shame keeps you isolated, keeps you from asking for help, and it keeps you trapped in the cycle. Here's what I want you to understand. Financial freedom isn't just about having money in the bank. It's about liberation. It's about breaking the chains that keep you bound. It's about being free to walk in purpose without creditors controlling your life. There's a psalm that addresses this bondage. When read correctly for 3 specific days with the right heart attitude, it shatters the spiritual chains of debt. The psalm is Psalm 37. Most people have never heard of using Psalm 37 for a debt breakthrough. They know Psalm 23 about the shepherd. They know Psalm 91 about protection. But Psalm 37 isn't commonly taught as a financial psalm, and it should be. Written by King David in his later years, it contains specific promises about debt, provision, and restoration unlike anything else in Scripture. David wrote this psalm after decades of observing life. He had been poor and he had been rich. He had been hunted and he had been king. He had struggled and he had prospered. In his old age, he wrote down what he learned about God's faithfulness to the righteous, especially regarding finances. The entire psalm centers on a specific problem. Why do the wicked prosper while the righteous struggle? Why do bad people have wealth while good people have debt? It's the question many ask when they're drowning financially. God, I'm trying to do right. Why am I broke while people who don't even serve you are thriving? David's answer throughout this psalm is clear: wait and trust. The wicked won't last, but the righteous will inherit. Then he gives specific promises about provision and debt that change everything. Here are the verses that make this psalm a key to breaking debt bondage. Verse 21 says, "The wicked borrows and does not repay, but the righteous shows mercy and gives." Pause there. This verse establishes a spiritual distinction. The wicked are characterized by borrowing and not repaying. The righteous are characterized by mercy and giving. When you're in debt, you can feel stuck in the first category, not because you're wicked, but because your circumstances have forced you to borrow and you're struggling to repay. But this verse points to your destiny. The righteous don't stay borrowers. They become givers. Reading this verse for 3 days begins shifting your identity. You're not permanently a debtor. You're temporarily in debt, but your identity is as one of the righteous, someone who gives, not someone who perpetually borrows. Verse 25 is David's personal testimony. "I have been young and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging bread." This is powerful. David is saying, I've lived a long life. I've seen everything, and I have never, not once, seen God completely abandon a righteous person to poverty. I've never seen their children begging in the streets. When you're drowning in debt, it can feel like you've been forsaken, like God has forgotten you, like you're going to end up on the street. But David, after years of observation, says he has never seen that happen to the righteous. This is a promise to claim over your situation. God hasn't forsaken you. Your children won't beg. Provision is coming. Verse 26 continues. He is ever merciful and lends, and his descendants are blessed. Here's the reversal. The righteous person doesn't stay a borrower. They become a lender. They move from debt to provision, from bondage to blessing, from owing to lending. This is what you're declaring over yourself when you read this psalm. My future is not determined by my current debt. I'm moving from borrower to blessed, from debtor to lender. Verse 34 says, Wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the land. That's the instruction. Not panic, not despair. Wait and trust. Stay faithful. And here's the promise. He shall exalt you to inherit the land. In biblical language, inheriting the land means receiving provision and abundance. It means getting what was promised. It means moving from wandering in debt to possessing abundance. These verses, these promises, when read with faith for 3 consecutive days, break the spiritual bondage of debt. They shift your identity. They establish your future. They call forth provision. But why 3 days specifically? Why not read it once? Why not read it for a week or a month? Because 3 days is the biblical pattern of transformation. Let me show you this pattern throughout Scripture. Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days. Then he was delivered and went on to fulfill his purpose. Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days. Then came resurrection and victory over death. Esther fasted for 3 days before approaching the king. Then came breakthrough and salvation for her people. Israel was told to take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to worship in freedom. 3 days to move from bondage to liberation. Over and over, 3 days represents the period between crisis and deliverance, between bondage and breakthrough, between death and resurrection. 3 days is the biblical time frame for transformation. So when you read Psalm 37 for 3 days, you're entering into this pattern. Day 1. You break agreement with debt's power over you. Day 2. You establish your new identity as blessed, not bound. Day 3. You complete the spiritual cycle of transformation. After 3 days, something shifts in the spiritual realm. The chains break. Not slowly over months, but suddenly, in a moment, the spiritual bondage shatters. Now you might ask, why not just read it once if God is all-powerful? Because reading once is acknowledgement. Reading for 3 days is declaration. Reading for 3 days shows intentionality, faith, and persistence. It is covenant action. You're doing your part for 3 days. You're showing God you're serious. You're demonstrating faith through committed action, and God honors the completion of the 3-day cycle. But you must read it correctly. The way you read it matters tremendously. Let me give you the specific instructions, because if you miss these, you'll read the words without accessing the power. First, timing. You must read Psalm 37 at the same time each day for 3 consecutive days. Morning is ideal because it sets the tone for your entire day, but any time works as long as it's consistent. The key is consistency. Same time, 3 days in a row. If you skip a day, you must start the 3 days over. This isn't a punishment. It's about completing the cycle. 3 consecutive days creates the spiritual pattern. Second, posture. Read it aloud, not silently in your head. Out loud. Words spoken have power in the physical realm. When words move from thought to speech, they enter the atmosphere. They create vibration. They activate spiritual law. Stand, if possible. Standing is a posture of authority, not begging from the ground, but standing as a child of God who has a right to these promises. If you must sit, sit upright with dignity. Not slouched, not defeated, but with the posture of someone claiming their inheritance. Third, manner. Read it slowly, not rushed, not mechanically checking off a task. Let each verse sink in. Pause after verses that speak to your specific situation. Let them penetrate your heart and mind. Don't just recite. Receive. This isn't ritual, this is relationship. You're not performing a religious duty. You're connecting with divine promises. Fourth, heart attitude. This is the most critical element. Read with faith, not desperation. Read as declaration, not petition. You're not begging God to help you with your debt. You're not groveling. You're not pleading from a place of worthlessness. You're aligning with what God has already promised. You're claiming what belongs to you as a child of God. You're declaring that these promises apply to your life. Read as someone claiming their inheritance, not as a beggar hoping for scraps. There is a huge difference in the spiritual realm between begging and declaring. Now, let me tell you what happens during the 3 days, because understanding this will help you persist even when you don't feel anything changing immediately. Day 1. Spiritual breaking begins. You might not feel different immediately in the natural realm. Your debt is still there. The bills are still there. The anxiety might still be there. But something begins shifting in the spiritual realm that you can't see yet. The agreement with debt's power starts breaking. For so long, debt has had authority over you. It has dictated your decisions. It has controlled your peace. It has dominated your thoughts. But on day 1, when you read the psalm with faith, that authority begins to break. Your consciousness begins changing. You start seeing yourself differently. You start seeing possibility where you only saw impossibility. Day 2. Identity shifts. By the second day of reading this psalm, declaring these promises, something shifts in how you see yourself. You're not just a person drowning in debt anymore. You're a child of God who is temporarily in debt, but moving toward blessing. The righteous shows mercy and gives. That's you, not someday but now. You are one of the righteous. This is your identity. The shame attached to debt begins lifting. That crushing feeling of failure, of embarrassment, of being less than starts to loosen. Not because the debt is gone yet in the natural realm, but because your identity is shifting in your spirit. Confidence starts returning. You begin to believe breakthrough is actually possible, that you won't be in debt forever, and that there is a way out. Day 3. Completion and release. By the 3rd day, something completes in the spiritual realm. The cycle is finished. The pattern is established. The declaration is sealed. Something releases that was being held. It's hard to explain in natural terms because it's a spiritual reality. But people who do this consistently report feeling it. A sense of release, a burden lifting, chains breaking, even before anything has changed in their bank account. The breakthrough isn't always immediate in the natural realm. You might not wake up on day 4 with all your debt miraculously gone, but the spiritual bondage has broken. What happens next in the natural realm follows the spiritual release. I've taught this practice to hundreds of people over the years. People drowning in debt, facing bankruptcy, about to lose their homes, in seemingly impossible situations. And the pattern of what happens is remarkably consistent. Within days or weeks of completing the 3-day psalm reading, something shifts in the natural realm. You've read Psalm 37 for 3 days. Something has shifted spiritually. The bondage has broken in the realm you cannot see. But spiritual breakthrough must be followed by natural action. There are 3 things you must do during the 3 days, and 3 things you must do immediately after to complete the cycle and manifest the breakthrough. I'm Rabbi Cheyenne, and what I'm about to show you are the actions that turn spiritual release into physical debt elimination. Let me be very clear about something. Faith without works is dead. That's scripture. Spiritual breakthrough is real. Reading Psalm 37 for 3 days can break bondage in the spiritual realm. But if you don't follow it with corresponding action in the natural realm, the breakthrough stays spiritual and never manifests physically. God opens doors, but you must walk through them. God provides opportunities, but you must seize them. God breaks chains, but you must move in your newfound freedom. So here are the 3 actions you must take during the 3 days while you're reading the psalm. Action 1. Give something away each day, even from lack. This seems absolutely insane, doesn't it? You're in debt. You're drowning financially. And I'm telling you to give something away. Yes, exactly. Because giving is what breaks scarcity consciousness. Here's what you must understand. Debt doesn't just create a financial problem. It creates a scarcity mindset. When you're in debt, you start thinking from lack. You grip tightly to everything you have. You operate from fear. You make decisions from scarcity. And scarcity consciousness attracts more scarcity. What you hold tightly stays small. What you grip with fear cannot grow. When you're operating from "there's not enough," you block the flow of provision. But when you give, even when it doesn't make logical sense, even when you're in debt, you break that scarcity mindset. You're declaring something powerful. I trust provision more than I fear lack. Giving opens your hands to receive. You cannot receive with clenched fists. When your hands are gripped tightly around what you have, holding on desperately, there's no room for more to come in. But when you open your hands in giving, you create space for receiving. Here's how to practice this during the 3 days. Day 1. Give money to someone who needs it more than you. Even $5. Even $1. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is that you're giving money while you're in debt. This is prophetic action. You're acting as if provision is flowing, even though your current circumstance says it's not. You're declaring through action that you're not controlled by debt. Day 2. Give food, time, or help to someone. Buy groceries for someone. Spend an hour helping someone who needs assistance. Give from what you have, not from surplus. Day 3. Give something of value you've been holding on to. Maybe it's something you could sell, but you give it instead. Maybe it's time you stopped protecting what you're afraid to lose, your time, your energy, your resources, or the expertise you usually charge for. Don't give expecting a return. Don't give so people will see how generous you are. Give as worship. Give as a declaration. Give as the breaking of bondage, and watch what happens in your spirit. When you give while in debt, something shifts inside you. Fear loosens. Trust increases. You prove to yourself that giving doesn't destroy you, that provision continues even when you release what you have. The second action during the 3 days. Speak debt ends out loud daily. After you finish reading Psalm 37 each day, make a declaration. Words have creative power. In Genesis, God spoke the world into existence. Words create reality. You've just read God's promises. That the righteous won't be forsaken, that you can move from borrower to giver, and that you will inherit the land. Now speak those promises over your specific situation. Say it in your own words, but include these elements. My debt is ending, not someday but now. The spiritual bondage is broken. Provision is flowing toward me. Opportunities are opening. Resources are coming. This debt will be resolved. I am moving from borrower to blessed. Speak this out loud immediately after reading the psalm. Speak with conviction, not desperation. You're not begging, you're declaring what's true in the spiritual realm. You're calling things that are not as though they are. This is how faith operates. Use your own words if mine don't resonate, but include a declaration of ending, a time frame, and a statement of reversal from borrower to blessed. Speak as if it's already done in the spiritual realm, because after 3 days of reading Psalm 37, the spiritual chains are broken. Now you're declaring that the physical manifestation is following spiritual reality. The third action during the 3 days. Write down every debt and pray over the list. Bring specific debts before God, not general God. Help me with money prayers. Name the debt. Name the amount. Name the creditor. Specific prayers lead to specific breakthrough. On day 1, write a complete list. Every debt, credit cards and balances, medical bills, personal loans, mortgage or rent arrears, everything. Write the creditor's name and the amount owed. This is hard. Seeing it all written down is confronting, but debt feels overwhelming when it stays vague and formless in your mind. Writing makes it concrete, visible, and confrontable. On day 2, hold that list in your hands while you read Psalm 37. Then pray, Lord, I bring these specific debts to you. I cannot resolve them alone. I've tried. I've struggled. I need your intervention. I trust you to provide the way out. Transfer the burden. You've been carrying this alone. Now you're partnering with God to resolve it. You do your part, reading the psalm, declaring, acting in faith. God does his part, opening doors, providing opportunities, orchestrating breakthrough. On day 3, declare over each debt specifically. This debt to this creditor is ending. Provision is coming for this specific amount. By faith, I release this burden to God, and I receive wisdom for how to resolve it. Go through every item on your list. Don't rush. Speak over each one. This is you exercising dominion over your situation instead of letting it dominate you. After you complete the 3 days, After you've read Psalm 37 3 times, given 3 times, declared 3 times, and prayed over your list, there are 3 more actions you must take immediately. The first action after completing the 3 days. Take one practical step toward debt reduction within 24 to 48 hours. Spiritual breakthrough must be followed by practical action. Faith without works is dead. God opens doors, but you must walk through them. Breakthrough creates opportunity, you must seize it. Within 1 or 2 days of finishing your 3rd reading, take a concrete step. Contact your largest creditor to negotiate a payment plan or settlement. Many creditors will settle for less than what's owed if you show good faith. Or apply for a debt consolidation program. Or sell something you've been holding on to that you don't actually need. Or take on a side project for extra income. Or cut one major unnecessary expense from your budget. Whatever step feels right, take it quickly. Don't wait weeks thinking about it. Move, because movement creates momentum, and momentum attracts more momentum. Action demonstrates faith. When you move in the natural realm after spiritual breakthrough, you're showing God and yourself that you believe something has changed. And that belief produces more change. The second action after the 3 days. Create a debt elimination timeline. Now that spiritual bondage is broken, create a practical plan. Faith and planning aren't opposed, they work together. A timeline gives your mind a roadmap. It turns vague hope into specific expectation. Write down each debt with a target payoff date. Be ambitious but realistic. Look at your income. Look at what you can cut from expenses. Look at potential extra income. Then assign dates. This credit card by this month, this medical bill by this date, this loan by this time. Create monthly milestones. What will be paid off by the end of each month? Post this timeline where you'll see it daily, on your bathroom mirror, your refrigerator, somewhere visible. What you focus on grows. What you track improves. Be flexible and adjust as unexpected provision comes. Because it will. That's what happens after spiritual bondage breaks. Money shows up from places you didn't expect. When it does, adjust your timeline and pay things off faster. The third action after the 3 days. Begin daily gratitude for provision. Thanksgiving is the language of receiving. Gratitude positions you to receive more.